Good afternoon again from the Hearts at War project. Just bringing another video in this series looking at artifacts and items of interest related to the Great War, and particularly Hertfordshire, of course. So this one we have here is the First World War British SWB, or Silver War Badge, also known as the Discharged Badge or the Silver Wound Badge. It's got quite an interesting story, and this one in particular has an interesting story. Basically, the SWB came about as a result of, again, this rather ridiculous practice of young ladies providing white feathers to apparently able-bodied men who weren't in the King's uniform. And of course, many servicemen, particularly by 1916 when this was instituted, had already been in, and in many cases either been discharged through sickness or with a wound, and there were quite a few documented instances of people being given a white feather, a sign of cowardice, even though they'd already done their bit and didn't necessarily have an obvious wound to show for their hard work. And so this was instituted and was meant to go onto the right lapel of a civilian suit, and to be worn kind of as a badge to show that you'd done your bit effectively. So let's have a quick look around this one. This, of course, is solid silver. Each one is uniquely numbered. We see here the number just there on the back. It's a pin back. And the cipher in the centre is GRI, which is George Rex Imperator, George V, and the inscription around the top is for King and Empire, services rendered. So these were issued in fairly large numbers, actually. At one point, about 1.1, just over 1.1 million of these issued during the Great War. And you see them quite regularly in sort of post-war photographs. They couldn't have been worn with a military uniform, but quite a lot of civilian shots, either towards the end of the war or post-war, show the SWB. This one's a very nice one. This one was actually awarded to a chap called Walter Satterthwaite, who served with the Hertfordshire Regiment and then with the Royal Berkshires afterwards, and was wounded in the knee in 1918, which immobilised his leg for life. And he was a military medal recipient, and he was awarded this upon discharge. Very sadly, Walter died some 47 years after the end of the Great War, due to increased pain that he'd had from his old war wound, which led to him going to hospital to have his leg amputated. Complications meant he actually died from that operation, which is really quite staggering when you think about it. The effects of the Great War still went on for years and years after the guns had fallen silent. But a nice item, interesting in its own right, and reasonably common, I suppose, these days, with about 1.1 million still about. But as I say, solid silver with a nice story, and I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks.